In 1985, on Halloween evening, I went to hear Susan Sontag speak at NYU, although I didn't want to. My roommate asked if I had any plans for the evening, and I said, yeah, I'm going to hear Susan Sontag speak at NYU, and she said, oh, that sounds really cool. I was going to invite you to this stupid costume party that I have to go to for work. Now, had she not said that it sounded really cool, I would have canceled my plans and gone to a costume party with Emily, my roommate. I would have canceled any plans to go to the party with Emily. I would have canceled any plans to go anywhere with Emily. But she had said that that sounded really cool, and she had deemed the costume party stupid, and I could not then cancel the really cool thing to go to the party she deemed stupid. I could not bear to be that man in her eyes. So rather than dressing up as a swashbuckler and going off to a party with my beautiful roommate, I put on professorial tweed and headed downtown. Emily had that dark, thick, naturally curled hair that causes men to want to push their fingers through it and inexplicably causes women to want to straighten it. Frequently she cursed and complained while she brushed it out, but she refused to cut it. Because after the accident that cost her her right arm, her friends and family had all said, well, obviously you'll have to cut your hair now. And she would not allow one traumatic accident to entirely redefine her. I adored her. She stood leaning in a doorway, her left hand cupped around the stump of her right arm in her equivalent of crossing her arms in front of her, a gesture that I think was designed to hide the residual limb, but in fact just drew attention to it. And I noticed. Everything about her fascinated me, and everything about that arm fascinated me. But I tried not to let that be too obvious, because over the past few years she'd grown accustomed to stares, and I didn't want her to feel stared at in her own home. I didn't want her to feel self-conscious when she was around me. She had magnificent symmetrical dimples when she smiled. And sometimes, just before she reached for something with her left hand, her right arm would twitch just a little bit, and then she would blink confused and smile sheepishly before reaching with her left hand. And when certain muscles moved, there was a matching dimple there. I noticed. And yet, I put on the jacket with the suede on the elbows and went downtown to see Susan Sontag. Halloween evening, I got off the train, emerged into Greenwich Village, and found myself, just for a moment, in that awkward I go right, they go right, I go left, they go left moment on the sidewalk with a man who was dressed for the holiday as Sexy Bo Peep. He had the flounces and the white stockings with the powder blue tied bow garters and the high heels, and he was shaved closely enough and made up so exquisitely that he could fool a young man for a moment or a minute or an hour, an evening if he was inclined to allow himself. And I felt myself in that awkward moment of initial attraction and then mild homophobic withdrawal. And I froze in my tracks as I recognized her true gender. And she smiled at me without judgment, without anger, without cruelty. And in that moment, I felt incredibly accepted and warm, as we were both trapped just for a second in one another's experience. And I wanted to say, you are so brave to go out in the world dressed as who you want to be. I wanted to open my soul to her and say, I am in love with my roommate and I cannot tell her. I wanted to express everything I had kept hidden my entire life to that date. I was overwhelmed with a cascade of emotions. There was shame that I might take pleasure in Emily's trauma. There was self-loathing that I might be turned on by this thing that caused her pain. There was rage at my hyper-feminist family who denied me any sense of strength and manliness throughout my life, and guilt over my own strength and my own body and the sins committed by my gender as a whole. And there was envy for this beautiful man in front of me, who stood there, made up to perfection, his package surely tucked and taped to maintain the illusion for just a little while, as he peeled away for someone the costume that he wore to dress as himself. And all I said was, wow, you look good enough to confuse a straight man. And she smiled at me and blew me a kiss over her shoulder as she walked off down the street. And I went to see Susan Sontag speak, and she was brilliant. She talked about art and the nature of art and photography as the art of an editor, that what is captured is not just an image. What is captured is the implication of that which is beyond the image, that it is not a documenting of a single frame that can be seen, that the beauty lies in what is unseen, what is cut off. And I was thrilled to hear her speak, though it meant missing a costume party with Emily. And on the subway on the way home that night, I determined that I would confess my love to Emily. I would find out where it took us. I would tell her the whole truth. But when I got back to our apartment, something had gone wrong at the party. She was there ahead of me, and she had changed out of her costume into an old New York Knicks t-shirt that was much too long for her, that she wore as a nightgown. And she sat on the couch with a Flintstones glass of red wine on the coffee table beside her, and her arm wrapped around her knees, sniffling. I never found out what happened at the party exactly. I didn't ask, I didn't push. But I told her I wished I had been there with her, for her, and that was true. I wished I had been there to protect her with some act of chivalry and kindness and warmth that would win her heart forever, and that was left out. And she sipped from her half-empty glass of wine, and she gripped the edge of the couch with her toes, and occasionally, as she spoke, she wrapped the sleeve of the nightgown around her nub and then released it again. And I sat with her and let her talk about whatever she wanted to talk about and not whatever was bothering her. And I knew that I wanted to wrap my arms around her and protect her and whisper warmth and love into her ear. And I saw the possibility in this moment for a seduction, but that felt like it would be taking advantage of a moment of vulnerability, and I could not stand to be that man in my eyes. So we sat together late into the night, and 2 weeks later she told me she hated New York. She apologized for leaving me with such short notice to find a new roommate before the rent was due, and she moved back upstate to Glen Falls. Now, I dress up in carefully chosen, particularly interesting cufflinks, with neo-dapper steampunk watch chains, and I weave together words into stories of my experience, and at cocktail parties and radio interviews, I will claim that it is my hope that I am setting an example so that we can all someday stand naked beneath a halogen street lamp and shout the names of our own most darkly dungeoned demons. But that is a lie. I stand behind these tightly woven tapestries, these complex, distracting images, and I hurl my desperate flares into the night sky in the hope that just one of them will explode at the right angle to provide a moment of translucence, so that my hidden truths, even if they go unspoken forever, can be for one flashing moment perceived, at least, as a phantom sensation. Thank you.